firstly, we are going to clarify the definition of the definitions, the key definitions in the motion. State the status quo, state the stakeholders, problems inside government's cases, a few preempts, and then I will move on to my arguments. Then finally, I will conclude by saying why you should cite government. Firstly, firstly, I'm going to state the few definitions. We outside government define the motion based on the factor that adult children are middle income and are able to live on the income, but not to the extent that they can own a house. Secondly, elderly parents, as parents who are all retired and not earning money. We also state that adult children are paying for we state that adult children would be paying for their houses if if they are staying in their parents with their parents, they will be paying for the houses if their parents do not own it. So now, without further ado, I will the stakeholders for our debate: the elderly parents, adult children. Status quo: adult children are insensitive to move out. Burden on site government is why adult children should be allowed to live with their parents. While on site opposition, we would like you to prove why adult children should not be allowed to should live alone and without your parents. And you must also state how this will affect your relationship with your parents. Firstly, onto a few preempts. You all might say that you would like your own privacy and your parents are annoying. These are examples of preempts. The first preempt. But you must first understand that parents only want the best for you. That is why they always nag at you. So now onto our second preempt. It shows that you have a sense of responsibility. But if you it does not it also shows that you care for your parents on our side. It shows that you take the sense of responsibility on your parents. Our side also receives the responsibility. You must understand this side opposition. Now I will clarify with you what we are stating. We state that you live with your parents. It shows that you care about them. Side opposition, please get this. Now, onto the factual arguments. What happens when you live with your parents? It saves cost of living. Now, on my first point, on how our side save cost of living, I believe that having a cheaper lifestyle is an exclusive benefit for our side, and that is not debatable. On our side, we lessen the burden of the adult children provide for their family, because the adult children only has to pay for the utilities of the house instead of two houses in our side case. I, as Prime Minister, will first talk about how our side lessens the cost of living, for therefore reducing the burden of adult children, and ending my speech on how this improves family bond by DPM. My DPM will then talk about how our side has immediately helped this extremely improve. But for now, I would like to continue with the point of lowering cost for living. Furthermore, we will live together. You get better relationship. You don't have to spend so much, as stated earlier. Now, improving family bonds. Now you move closer to your parents. You are staying with your parents. You can get firstly on the grandparents. As a grandparent, if you would definitely want my child to live with you, I will feel free and not ended. My child is still caring for me, and this is all what the grandparents and will feel. Now on to my conclusion. We have proven exactly why the children should live with their parents. Chair, please cite the winning side, which is side government. With this, I will end my speech. I am proud to propose.
Thank you to the Prime Minister. Now I'd like to invite the Leader of Opposition. Here.
All right, give me a minute before I start. And my speech starts now. So, lots of adult children tend to live with their parents for a long time, even in as high as their 30s. on the side of opposition, I say that adult children should not live with their parents. Now, proposition has said that the parents know what's best. That's why they're always nagging at you all the time. Well, the truth is that when they're in their 30s, late 20s to 30s, why would you want to be living with your parents for that long time? Also, it's nice to visit them every once in a while, but it's not the best to stay every day. Now, next point. So if young adults live with their parents or adult children, it does not encourage them to step out into the real world and live on their own. So if they begin to suffer, and they go back to their parents for help. Keep in mind, we define these parents as elderly, and we define elderly as anyone above the age of 60, and we agree with the rest of their definitions about elderly people. So this is good. This is not good. Sorry, this is not good because when more adult children are living in with their parents, then the unemployment rate goes up. So this is not good because the employment rate in the USA is extremely high, and most of these young adults might not have a real job. For some of them are the only thing closest to a job is doing things like streaming on Twitch or creating content on social media platforms such as YouTube or TikTok or Instagram. To make matters worse, having a high unemployment rate will take a toll on the financial aspect of the economy, which takes a toll on the society as a whole, which makes inflation go up. Now, to my next point, which is that when more adult children live with their parents, not only will there be a high inflation and a higher unemployment rate, there will also be a drop in population numbers. The reason why is because less adult children will go out to date or meet new people. So instead of having more people giving birth or getting married, less people will be dating or or of course getting married, and the population numbers will go down. My third excuse me?
POI.
Oh, thank you.
It's 3 minutes.
No, thank you. Let me continue. Next, also, instead of supporting their parents from another location with money they earn from an actual job or off a living, then instead of that, they're pretty much just freeloading off their parents' money. They're usually not making, even if they make money, they don't make much money, and it's hard for their parents maybe to pay rent or to pay for the living costs in the house. Therefore, if you're in your late 20s or 30s, or as an adult child, you should not be living with your parents in the same house as them. That concludes my speech.
Thank you to the Leader of Opposition. I would like to invite the Deputy Prime Minister here.
Can you give me a little while to do my rebuttals first? Like to fix my rebuttals.
Sure.
Okay, my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Panel. The only thing side opposition is saying is that there will be less McDonald workers in the USA if these adult children want to live with their elderly parents, which makes absolutely no sense. They have not understood the motion. It has a lack of depth, and the argument has been lacking depth, and I will tell you why. Now, I'll running down my speech with with rebuttals and two arguments. Firstly, my rebuttals. My first rebuttal is that they say that the unemployment rate will go up. Well, however, this is completely false because we are not defining adults as having no job, as having no jobs. That point has been completely irrelevant. And the other another thing they said is that they will have less population. Another This is also completely false because they think that everyone who lives with their parents is a jobless poor person who can't get a date. They are so exaggerating. And my
Yo,
last rebuttal rejected. And my last example is they say that the adults are just piggybacking off their parents' money. These poor adults exist on both sides. You have not stated on how your side is better. Our side is better for those poor people because we provide them with a place to stay and also a less cost of living. And with that, I have completely destroyed the arguments on from first speaker of opposition. Now moving on to my argument. My first argument is about immediate help. This is true because there has been cases where people who live alone that collapse and died because no one came to check on them. The elderly parents are too old to go to their house and wondering why their child isn't visiting anymore. But if this scenario was on the elderly parents' side, the child wouldn't be visiting every day, maybe once a month, or if they're overseas, maybe just only once a year. And so no one's going to help these elderly parents. Let's say that in a scenario where the elderly mother collapses and no one is there to help except the elderly father. If I was old and have problems walking and also heart problems, I would also probably have a heart attack too if I see my wife collapse. On our side, we have the exclusive benefit of immediate help. The adult is living far away and it's difficult to take care of the parents sufficiently. If there are any medical conditions that suddenly pop up, the adult will not know about it quick enough and also can't meet the age quickly enough. Another reason why it's true because there's a show called A Man Called Otto, who is all he hates the world. He's very grumpy. But when there were young people, when there's these young people who his neighbors helped him and treated him like he was their dad, he was happy and not as grumpy as he was. This also helps on my first argument, which is because Otto lived alone. When he died due to heart problems, no one knew because they were busy and didn't check on him. But fortunately, his neighbors checked on him because he knows his activities, because they know his activities, and they know his daily walks, and was concerned what was happening. See,
yo,
if rejected, if they weren't there, what would have happened? This is the same towards adult children with their parents if they were living together. Any problems could be dealt with immediately. This is important because an old person can reach up of the cupboard to get their world's best parent cup, but a healthy adult person can. If there were any problems with the elderly parents or with their child, they have each other to rely on instead of some stranger side opposition is paid to take care of them, where they only are there for the money. And as a person who isn't too rich or poor, I wouldn't get a nanny or a nurse because of the cost. Any of you ask? 3, 2, 1. Okay, now moving on to my second argument, which is a more argument on from my first speaker, which is improving family bonds. Now moving on how to I also said what he said. Now moving on to how our side improves familial bonds. On our side, the grandparents, adults, and their children all live together. We strongly believe that it's better for all of them. Firstly, on the grandparents, as a grandparent, I would definitely want my children to live with me. I feel as if my child still cares for me, and the time that I've spent with my child has not ended. With my child living with me, I can clearly see the love that my child still has for me. Now, on the adult, I have already stated how the adult has to pay less money, but also depends on the strength his bond with his grandparent. As an adult, I would definitely
yo,
feel grateful to live with my rejected to live with my parents. I would feel like I finally had the chance to give back to them what they have given to me. I feel grateful because I had the chance to be with them during the last few years of their lives, before providing and caring for them. As you grow older, you tend to feel more close or understand your parents more. When we are adults, our love for our parents grow, and we should feel inclined to give back to them and not throw them into elderly homes as if they're
Time.
unwanted. Mo- And with that, I'll end my speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to the Deputy Prime Minister. Now I'd like to invite the Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here.
Please give me a few seconds to organize everything.
All right.
Please start the timer on my first word. Proposition portrays parents as elderly parents as incapable people who can't rely on anyone else but their children. They can't rely on themselves. And that living away from their children would completely destroy their relationships, which of course is completely false. As a quick roadmap, in my speech, first I'll be rebutting my opponent's points and then extending on to our team's case with by giving our third and final contention. Now moving on to refutations. They said that our burden is that we had to talk about how it affects the relationships with the parents and between the child and the parent. So even on that, they say that, oh, you can only call them maybe once a year or visit them sometimes. But the thing is, with technology so updated, you can call them every day. You can FaceTime them. It'll be like you're there in person. More than that, if you live close by, you can even visit them every day. It all depends on the person. And more than that, this topic is specifically that you prefer that proposition prefers it, so it's not saying that it's totally bad and that no one should ever do it. More so on that, they say that maybe they have health conditions and maybe they can only visit once a year, and even if they have health conditions, maybe they didn't take care of their parents, they can live with their parents. We're not saying that it's explicitly bad, we're saying that we don't prefer this to happen. Moving on to another rebuttal that from their first contention, they say that parents only want the best for you. And we agree, and we want the best for the parents as well. And in the same way, we want the best for the parents by giving them the opportunity to live independent, to finally be free of their kids who they've taken care of their entire lives. Secondly, they talk about how it shows a sense of responsibility, and they say that you can show that you care for your parents. That's not showing that you care for your parents. You can show that you care for your parents by actually taking care of them, by giving them this opportunity to live free from either you or from their grandchildren, so they can finally live free without any burdens or without anything that for them is like, oh, I need to take care of this. They can finally live a life where they can travel the world, they can do whatever they would like to do for the rest of their lives. And lastly, my third piece of refutation is they talk about the less cost of living. Sure, you save money by living in the same house. We totally agree with that. And but for that, why would you stop there? Why wouldn't you just start living with all your cousins or start living with all your adult siblings and families? This might sound a bit silly, but in the same way, families need space. We need space, even though it might be the adult parents who now have a family separately and the elderly parents. Now moving on, the third and final contention, which is that adults might have kids of their own, which will most likely be too much for the older parents, since those new kids shouldn't be their responsibility. Judge, imagine that you grew up in a low income family. You get into a good college, you make your way up into high positions at work, you do the best for your family, and when you hit the age of 70, you realize that your children have grown up and you're finally free from any burdens that have kept you from achieving your dreams. You've planned out a vacation with your spouse that you now have time to spend together with. And finally, you can do whatever you want since you finally have both the time and money. That is, until your daughter suggests that you come live with her. At first, you think it's a good idea, but as time passes by, you realize that A, you can't keep up with the energy of your grandchildren and having to take care of them since you're often responsible for them as an adult of the house. And B, just as before, you're now stuck with kids at home, not being able to get out of the house and achieve your dreams. So, George, after working your whole life, don't you think that you should be able to live out peacefully and do whatever you would like for the rest of your life? Proposition might not agree, but as opposition, we want to ensure that elderly parents who have done so much for their children don't just have another burden placed on them. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'd like to invite the government whip. Here.
Yeah, okay. Am I audible?
Yep.
Yeah, so my pronouns are he, him, and I prefer pure eyes with audibly. Okay, my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. Chair, they have lost. The second that they bring up the fact that apparently all people who live in their parents' houses have to be a poor, jobless person who's too ugly to find a date. That case can easily be taken down with the fact that adults are not all people with no life, right? They live with their parents because they care about them, not because they are poor and they want to use their money. Also, they haven't even proved how adults that are poor are better on their side and they like a comparative. Now, moving on to Mary Buttles, number one. They said that they can still call them every day. Two responses to this. Number one, this is not the same because as you know, a long distance relationship is not as meaningful as a physical relationship. If you have a girlfriend or something that lives in USA, if you
POI.
call him every day, it wouldn't feel the same. Yes,
Okay.
it's not 1
So
minute.
you said that
It's not
we
1 minute
said
yet.
It's not one.
Okay, so and number two, even if it really is as meaningful if you are in a long distance relationship with your child, we still win on scale because they live with them. Okay. Number two, they also keep saying that grandparents are not reliant on the adults and they don't need the adults. Instead, grandparents are free from their children and they don't want their children. Now, I have a lot of responses to this, but firstly, grandparents are very reliant on adults. Number one, grandparents are not working anymore, they're already retired. Number two, grandparents are prone to medical health issues. Like my second speaker has said, maybe your grandparents has already collapsed and had a heart attack or something. You are all the way in another house. You don't know what has happened. You cannot get there quickly enough because you're living somewhere else. This problem is mitigated on our side. They never engaged with that. And
May I-
number three, they are
may I please state my POI now?
yes.
Okay. So my POI is that you keep saying that we call elderly people broke and weak and they can't fend for themselves. We don't mean that. We mean to say that elderly people need to relax. They've been working for many years, taking care of their
Over
children for many
15
years,
seconds.
and
Over
it's
15
really
seconds.
Okay.
tiring.
Stop.
Okay, so number one, that was equity because he POI for more than 50 seconds. But number two, to answer your POI, you said that they deserve a break. You said that apparently they worked their whole life and to raise their children and now they deserve a break away from the children. But number one, how is this not present on our side? The grandparents they can still go on vacation. The grandparents can still go wherever they want. The grandparents still feel free because they don't need to work. They're retired. But the difference is on our side, they have their children to comfort them. You act as if your children being there is so annoying to you. You act as if your children being there is so this affects you so negatively that you want to go suicide or something. You act as if your children are there, you cannot be free, you cannot be rested. Well, that is completely false because obviously if your child is already an adult, if they live with you, they wouldn't really annoy you that much, right? As an adult, they would love you and they would cherish you, they would care for you, and they will provide for you. So that is the thing that is exclusive on our side. And also, as a grandparent, you also said that it's not the role of a grandparent to take care of the grandchildren and that they don't care about the grandchildren. You act as if raising a child or raising grandchildren is so hard. But do you really think a lot of grandparents complain about, oh no, I have to raise grandchildren, like boo hoo? Well, that is because a grandparent obviously has a lot of time on their hands. A grandparent is retired and has a lot of time. They can use that time to raise the grandchildren when the parents cannot, when the parents are not there. This is why we provide a better world for the children, the adults, and the grandparents. And
Over 3.
yes, oh, okay. So basically, we provide such a good work for either of all three of them because number one, grandparents are cared for. Number two, adults can provide for their parents. Number three, the grandchildren are can spend time with their grandparents instead of them living in a completely different house. Our side, we clearly take this debate easily because they keep emphasizing the wrong thing. Okay. With that, I'd like to end my speech. Thank you.
All right. Thank you to the Gov Whip. Now I'd like to invite the Up Whip.
Let me prepare. Hold on. This house prefers a world where adult children live with their elderly parents rather than supporting to live with them separately. I am opposition. In my speech, I will be refuting to what proposition said. Proposition says that you live with your parents all the time and living with your parents. So if the a child is living with your parents, it's very different. An adult living by themselves is very, very different than living with a parent. If the adult has a dream they want to go achieve or go do this or that, they may not be able to live with the parent. This is not good, because the child would want to pursue their own dream and to go educate themselves more. But with their parents, they might not be able to do this. And even if, as Proposition said, you have to care for your so-called elderly parents, you have to care for them, they won't have time to educate themselves and go do what they want to do.
Your eye.
Proposition, no thank you. Proposition acts as if grandparents need their children. They need them to care for them. No, they don't. Many people in the world right now, elderly people, they are living fine on their own, in which some elderly people, they have each other, they can care for each other, and even if they are retired, then how are the people in the world who are elderly, retired right now, living a good life? Yes, children may be able to go care for what people say, but children may want to go care for their parents, but their parents don't always need it. They can
Your
go. No, thank you. They can go and they can visit them whenever. They can also call them. They can also find maybe another relative to go care for them. They are not the only ones. There are other people in the world that can also help. An example, Kyle is living in a village with his parents. As a proposition sports, he's living crippled in areas, yet he is talented and gifted. He cannot escape to a better life because of where he lives. This shows that Kyle, he's talented and he's gifted. He wants to go educate himself. He wants to go have a better life.
Your eye.
However, yes.
Are you prioritizing your own education over the welfare of your parents who raised you?
No, but your parents are also important. However, your parents can also care for themselves. They've been living who knows what, 50 years? They know how to care for themselves. They're not the only ones in the world who, we need our children. Yes, you may need your children, but you can have someone to care for you even if your children is not here. In conclusion, I say that we should not have adults living with children living with their parents. Thank you.
All right, thank you to the whip. Now I'd like to invite the opposition reply.
Please start the timer on my first screen. Throughout this debate, there has been two major clashes, one being principle and one being practical, which I'll be addressing in my speech. So, on to the first clash, which is practical, which is the parents being able to live free from the burdens. Firstly, they say that grandparents don't mind raising a child since they have time. When the parents aren't there, they said, the grandparents could step in and take care of them. To that, we would say that grandparents aren't babysitters. They raise a parent, and in the same way, that parent should be held responsible for raising their children. We say, on the other hand, that grandparents should be able to live a life without these burdens, whether it be having a job or worrying about raising a child. We outweigh this because even in the end, by a true world analysis, Proposition's world is a world where grandparents are tired from their whole life working and their age being factored in, and they're still being forced to work by raising these children that aren't even their children, but it's their grandchildren. moving on to the second piece of clash, which is the principle, how it affects the relationships with the parents. They say that it's a sense of responsibility and that it shows how you care for your grandparents. How do you care for them? By caring with your grandparents, do you mean that you're restricting them? You're not letting them live their own life? And even though we've said that, they're continuously bringing back a point that has already been defeated. On the other hand, we say that people can always visit their grandparents, their parents. We outweigh this in the end because people can always move in. They gave the examples if people had medical conditions. Again, the topic is preferred. So if something major really happens, people can move in with their parents. It's just that we don't prefer this to happen. So if that is the people's choice, again, but in the end, vast majority of the people can always visit their parents, and with advancing technology, call them or do other things so that they can stay in touch. We're not saying that they should completely abolish their relationship with their parents. So in the end, proposition only cares about how it looks to be or how the parents, the grandparents, or these elderly parents need to rely on their children, even though that is not the case. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now for the Gov reply. Here.
A second, if you please. Mute it, mute it. Chair. Am I audible, Chair? Wait up.
Yes,
Am
you
I
are.
audible?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Chair, side opposition is not paying attention to our speeches because they completely ignored our PM speech. They have stated that they should live with their parents because it is improving their relationship. Then the LO suddenly comes up with that the children should be allowed to date, but then they cannot date because they don't have money. Chair, we have clearly defined and taken down this point. I do not see why LO is bringing up such points. Furthermore, science opposition has not been should be acquitted because they have just disrespected my third speaker by giving PRs which were longer than 15 minutes. Sorry, 15 seconds. Second, now onto the main
POI.
onto the clash.
There is
Sorry,
no
POIs are not
POIs.
accepted in reply speeches. Now onto our clashes. Whether you care about your parents or not, this is the main clash in this debate. While side opposition is stating that they care about the parents, but then they think that we the children are a burden towards the parents. I do not see how this is happening. Chair, please take this to note that side opposition is going beyond. Is just making up points in these points which are irrelevant in this debate. Furthermore, side government has not has a lack of engagement with our side. They aren't attacking our points. Our points still stand. We have clearly engaged in the debate. Chair, if you are here on earth debating, judging this debate, and not on Mars, where side opposition is, you would clearly give the win towards us. In conclusion, we have fulfilled our burdens and protected our stakeholders, whereas side opposition only understands the elderly understands that the elderly parents think that their children are too good for them and think that the children are a burden, while the children is just helping them. So proud to propose. With this, I end my speech.
Thank you. Please give me a moment.